the most important thing is that the Liberal government is one step closer to majority. I think we're going to be in election season sooner rather than later. As someone who previously denied ever crossing the floor and, in fact, was going to resign to spend time with family, has now crossed the floor to the Liberals, and that is Conservative MP Matt Jeneroux from Edmonton Riverbend. I guess I'll throw it to the guys first. Stockwell Day, comments.
Well, thanks, Sheila. I can tell you it's disappointing to see, not just obviously as a supporter of the Conservative Party, but just from a Democratic point of view, when you run to get elected locally, you tell people you're going to serve them under a certain party banner. And frankly, you either were lying at the time, or your judgment capabilities are so out of line that maybe you shouldn't be serving. So this is disappointing. Certainly, it causes people to be cynical about the process. It obviously puts pressure on the Conservatives. Now we're at a place, I believe there's three Liberal by-elections coming up,
Yeah.
all in previously Liberal held ridings. So will Carney have to go to an election? Maybe, maybe not. But this is very disappointing from Democratic process, and I hope there will be a robust recall campaign that gets launched to make life, at the very least, to make life difficult for the MP who has done this.
Oh, good sir, I am working on it already. David, comments from you?
Yeah, it's a betrayal of his constituents. I think he's a
Hmm.
guy, but it's the last political thing he'll be able to do. And I think this is very short-sighted. I think moves like this by guys like this are so short-sighted because it doesn't just violate a democratic principle of constituent representation. It also fundamentally undermines people at a time where they're hurting. They want to be heard. They want to be understood by a government that's been kind of evading that. And this is a card trick. I also think that basically it points to a likely election coming up. I think this is, in so many ways, this is a big mistake by Matt.
Yeah, I see former Conservative MP, and I think generally a good guy, Rick Perkins, has noted that Matt doesn't live in the riding and hasn't for quite some time,
Yeah.
and that he's already in British Columbia. So run in British Columbia if a seat opens up. I mean, not only are you not now respecting the democratic will of the people of Riverbend, but you aren't even there, and then you're going to cross the floor to the Liberals. Matt, I think he won by about 6 points. So he's held the riding since it was created in 2015. And, you know, you sort of, as demographics change, you've seen sort of that huge gap between the Conservatives and the Liberals close there. But he still won handily. And you know, he's completely ignoring the message sent by those constituents. Ezra?
You know, floor crossing this quickly after an election with no good reason other than, hey, I thought I would be more powerful and have a bigger, salary. That's an insult to the democratic process, no matter what. I mean, if there were a grand reason, if there were an important philosophical or ideological reason, I think people would have more patience for it. To switch to be a turncoat this soon after an election, we saw the same thing happen in Nova Scotia a month or so ago. It's outrageous, but let me add one more layer to it, because right now Alberta is gearing up for a referendum on secession. And in fact, I think tomorrow night the Premier is going to have an address talking about that. And there are people actively signing petitions to get out of Canada. And the people of Edmonton Riverbend did something positive. They say, no, we're going to vote for a Federalist Party because we think we can work with the system and elect someone to Parliament to challenge the bad directions this country is going. All right, you said work within the system, so we will. So they vote in that district for a Conservative. And I haven't checked, but I understand that district has always been Conservative.
Yeah, it has.
So in private backroom arrangements, some inducement, a secret inducement that we do not know, is proffered to this candidate who just ran months ago on being a Conservative. What do you think everyone in that district, everyone in that riding is thinking now? They're thinking the obvious. The system is rigged. When we do what we're told, when we play within the rules, It's rigged. They buy him off in a corrupt manner. The election was a sham. Imagine making the case for federalism in Edmonton Riverbend, saying, hey, guys, no, don't lose hope. Just keep at her, guys. Just keep electing Conservatives. And if we need to, we'll buy him off. But just go through that gerbil wheel. Keep running around. I think that Mark Carney didn't realize the separatist echoes of what he did, because he just proved the system is broken for Alberta Conservatives.
Stockwell?
Well, I think that adds to it. There's no question. We'll see where the whole discussion goes. I think you want to talk about that in a bit relative to separation. I have to, further to what Ezra said, maybe Matt, and I say this charitably, maybe he needs, some help in terms of just stability, because, a wise man once said this to me, and I'm being careful here, that when something happens in politics that completely makes no sense at all, somebody's getting paid off. And I'm not saying that applies here, but it's either that or something so overwhelmed his judgment. As Ezra's pointed out, there's been a long-standing seat here. And first of all, if there is something personal going on, mentally with him, I hope he gets help. But there still is no excusing what he did. And constituents need to come down hard on this. And as I said a minute ago, we need to see a really robust recall. Whether it works or not, it sends a message. Fighting a recall campaign is expensive, it's time consuming, it's emotionally draining, and he should have to pay the price on every one of those fronts.
Well, and it makes people so cynical, because what has tangibly gotten better that you would reward the Liberals with your support? I mean, these are issues that Matt Jeneroux campaigned on in the last election 90 seconds ago. So, has crime improved? Property rights improved? Firearms rights improved? Have we dealt with illegal and out of control immigration or the cost of living? Have we repaired the trade issues with the Americans? No, and no. So why are you rewarding the Liberals with your support? It causes people to speculate on the things that Stockwell just mentioned, David.
Yeah, look, parties are an organizing structure for interests to be aggregated around real interests. And people vote conservative because they believe that freer markets and lower taxes and more autonomy will create more prosperity for them and their kids. And they mean it. And when you disenfranchise the vote because somebody can do a backroom trade, you create a secondary market in being able to buy off representatives once they've been elected. And that's a really dangerous precedent for the country. I actually think that if there's one or two more of these, there's going to be a discussion around whether or not you have to have a waiting period. You have to sit as an independent. I actually think there's a fundamental democratic issue at stake here for the country that has to be addressed when the shoe's on the other foot, and it will be soon. Maybe not election after. If the Conservatives did the same thing going the other way around, and you created this market for backroom trade that allowed you to just subvert the will of the people that had voted and just buy off those Maritimers we're always hoping would go conservative, right? And you create a super majority, and you push through the entire conservative agenda based on our ability to buy off people that had voted for Liberals, but we were able to buy their reps off once they had actually gotten into the House. You would have a huge scandal on your hands. And so I think this is going to have to be addressed beyond just our frustration because it's conservative crossing the floor. It's actually a fundamental problem and flaw if this is allowed to persist within Canadian federalism.
Well, and you could understand it. I wouldn't like it, but you might understand it if there were some sort of touchstone issue that just exploded that would either drive someone to the Liberals if the Conservatives had did it, or drive a Liberal to the Conservatives going the other direction. But that hasn't happened. So again, it causes that speculation.
Yeah, and we specifically make up for the potential for there to be issues of conscience by having votes of conscience.
Sure.
Right. There are issues where somebody says, I know these are my constituents, but I have a conscience, and on a particular issue, I'm not going to just try and vote the popular will of my constituents or my party. I'm going to vote with conscience. So we actually structure votes around solving for that specifically so that you don't create a secondary market in buying off reps once they've already been elected. It's a bad precedent. I think it's bad for him as a person and for his, whatever career he wants in the future as well.